Get yourself started on the right foot. Hello everyone, Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here on the Free to Pause account, mostly because we are going to talk a little bit about ways to turbocharge the early game on your account. Now, this was actually an idea from one of my viewers. I will definitely got to thank you guys. You guys have given me a couple of interesting ideas of videos you would like to see. I actually put up a poll recently where I would do a Q&A session based off of some of that stuff as well. I don't know if I'll have filmed it by now, by the time this actually goes live, but anyone who actually has done any of the Q&A session stuff, I definitely appreciate it. I appreciate learning some of the questions you have for me. I also appreciate ideas you have on videos. And specifically, he had asked, what can he do and what should he focus on as an early 1 month, 1.5 month old account to grow the account and maximize progress? Now, or I say he, she, it doesn't really matter. Make assumptions, and it's probably unfair. But regardless, we are here to talk about ways that you can turbocharge your account in the early game. So some of the things that you need to focus on early. Now, one of the things I am going to mention specifically is when you are starting a brand new Raid Shadow Legends account, you should use a promo code, much like the one I've got listed down below. The one I've got listed down below gives you LNRL, a very solid legendary, gives you Fane, and it gives you Mausoleum Mage. Fane and Mausoleum Mage are two very solid epics that can help you progress in the game. Doesn't have to be my link though. Obviously I'd prefer it be my link. It helps support me, it helps support the channel, but any link that gets you a bunch of interesting champions is going to be a good leg up on starting without that. On top of that, there are codes to get a couple of interesting champions. I believe the Supreme Gallic code for Supreme 6 is no longer functioning at the moment. That's unfortunate, but you can certainly try to get to Hanorok. I believe there might be a way to get Riho. I'm not 100% sure about that. I've seen advertisements, but I haven't looked into it. You can certainly get the current fusion, or at least the most recent fusion, of Tholen Foulbeard, and I think Tholen Foulbeard is an excellent champion to start with. You can get Monkey King, who's also great. You can even start with Stultus. Stultus is an interesting option as well. Stultus can put in a lot of work on an early game account. His late game potential falls off compared to some of the other options we've talked about. Honestly, I think Tholen might be the best option, or the Sun Wukong Monkey King. Sun Wukong gives you an arena aura that can be very, very helpful for growing an arena, whereas Tholen gives you a very solid damage dealer and wave damage dealer for any content in the game right now. So both are great options. It's really going to depend on what you want to focus on a little bit more. So with that said, you get yourself 2 starting legendaries, a couple of starting epics, and of course you've got your starter Kale. So how do you turbocharge your account? Well, first of all, you are going to want to focus on either one of those 2 starting legendaries and probably get one or both of them to 6 stars fairly quickly. You also wouldn't mind to get Kale, who I recommend as your starter, but whoever your starter is, getting them to 60 is probably not a bad idea either, because they can help you in Clan Boss, particularly Kale. And the reason I like Kale is one of the best for Clan Boss, and Kale is one of the best for Dragon early on. And those are 2 places where it helps to get extra access. Thul can certainly help you in Fire Knight, and while Elhain can be okay in Arena, you could start with Sun Wukong, or you can start with Tholen Foulbeard, both of which will probably well outshine Elhain in Arena very, very early, so probably not the best option in my opinion. And Gallic, well, he's the poster boy of Raid, but not because he's good, unfortunately. So you're going to want to get a couple of champions to 6 stars, and what you probably want to be on pace for, and this is going to depend on how hardcore you're playing the game, but you want to be getting at least 1 6-star a week early on. In fact, you probably are going to want to spend more time focused on champion training than you are on just about anything else on the account. It is very, very tempting to dive into dungeons, say, I don't have the gear for this, I don't have everything else. No, you don't need great gear to be able to farm 12-3 Brutal, which is what you want to get to, so you can make chickens fast. And you don't need great gear to build yourself 4 or 5 6-star champions. Once you get to your 3, 4, or 5 6-star champions, then you've got a core team. So identifying that core team, which is probably going to be who's going to help you for Clan Boss and who's going to help you on most of the waves. So you're going to want to identify 1 damage dealer, ideally some kind of debuffer, ideally some kind of healer and or reviver, maybe a cleanser, and then maybe a 2nd damage dealer wouldn't hurt for a lot of those waves. And that should get you very, very far. So maybe I've got my core 5. What am I focusing on first? So clan boss is one of the most important areas in the game. In fact, I just did a video talking about areas that you do not want to slack off on, and clan boss is one of the ones you want to run clan boss daily. You really want to run as high as you can as possible. Generally, the goal is to ideally be in a clan that is giving you double chests of whatever version of clan boss you're running, or at least most of the chests that you're running. And ideally, you want to push yourself to be able to get the top chest on the top level that you can, and then any chest below that don't hurt. So for a while, I was regularly doing the top chest on hard, and then a top chest on easy and a top chest on normal, and it wasn't a big deal. Once I was able to do like 2 key on brutal, I was then 2 keying on brutal, getting a chest on hard, and sometimes I would get a chest on normal. And you generally, if you can do brutal, you can probably 1 key normal. It's just kind of the way things work. If you can do nightmare, you may or may not be able to 1 key brutal. You can definitely 1 key hard. So 2 keying nightmare, 1 keying brutal, and 1 keying hard, not bad. Or 2 keying nightmare and 2 keying brutal, not bad. If you have to 3 key nightmare and 1 key brutal, and if you can still 1 key brutal at that, that's fine. But you want to push yourself up to at least getting to dealing with nightmare. Why? Because the top chest on nightmare is the first time you can actually start getting legendary books and sacred shards. Now, the chances are not high to get either one of those, but the fact that you have a chance to get either one or possibly both of those is very, very important. And that's one of the best ways to advance in the game. It doesn't hurt that these potions are very, very helpful. You don't have to farm the potion dungeons quite as much if you're starting doing clan boss particularly well. Plus the gear that you can get can be very, very helpful. Cruel gear and immortal gear can be very helpful, especially early on, even not great pieces of them. You get extra gems. Gems are amazing, especially if you are a free to play or even a low spend player. Extra gems never hurt. And brews can be a very, very vital thing as well. You get great materials for advancing your card in the clan boss. So that really is your number 1 priority. And honestly, if you get your first 5, 6 stars, you should be doing brutal on a 1 or a 2 key pretty easily. And if you can do a 2 key brutal, probably don't want to test nightmare, but once you can 1 key brutal, that's when you want to make sure that you can start to 2 key nightmare. And if you have to 3 key nightmare and 1 key brutal, and you're not getting the top chest on brutal, that is still 100% worthwhile, because that top nightmare chest is where clan boss starts to be absolutely amazing. Before then, the rewards are decent, but not absolutely amazing. It's hard to get shards. You don't get a lot. In fact, if you look here, you only get 3 rewards out of this stuff. So you might get a piece of gear, you might get a brew, you might get a book, you might get a potion, you might get silver, you might get gems, or you might get some of these shards. But it's entirely possible that you could get silver, potions, and gems. Not the worst thing, but certainly not really what you're looking for very, very early on. Next up, don't slack on faction wars. But when I say don't slack on faction wars for an early game, I'm not saying that you should dedicate all your time and effort into doing faction wars. What you should 100% do, however, is once you pull at least one okay-ish rare that has an AoE attack, stick them aside, throw some random gear on them, and make sure that you can guarantee yourself with a rare to do the first level. And honestly, if you can do the first level, there's a good chance you can solo level 2 and level 3 of the faction wars. So being able to do this one here, or even this one right here, even level 3, it's not amazing. You're only going to get 1-star glyphs. You're only going to get a little bit of material to forge, but that forge material can help get you silver, can help you get you some gear that early on might actually really help you. And you never want to get stuck in a situation where you cannot do faction wars at all on any particular rotation, because that is top level rewards of your advanced quests that you're not going to get done. So it's not that hard to give yourself a okay rare, take them, and instead of making them an instant chicken, pulling them aside, giving them some amount of gear so they can at least survive stage 1, if not stage 2 and stage 3. And then you can slowly but surely start to round out some of the rares in some of your counts. And meanwhile, you probably want to start to look at some of the factions where you start out strong and continue to go strong in them. So for example, using my code, you're going to get a legendary high elf that's going to help you a lot. So if you have a couple of other high elves, then maybe you start pushing in high elves a little bit and you gear a couple of high elves. There's a couple of good high elf rares as well. That doesn't hurt, including some campaign farmable ones such as Eris, and of course, obviously, if you get a chance to get a apothecary, he is absolutely amazing early on. So, you know, that's a good one. Skinwalkers, you're going to get a Fane. Fane certainly is squishy, but Fane, you know, with a couple of other fodder champions, should be able to get yourself through the first couple levels of Skinwalker pretty easily. Mausoleum Mage can certainly carry the undead hordes early on with all the healing and support that he gives. So you're going to have a couple of factions there. If you go with Kale, Dark Elves should certainly be a little bit easier. You could certainly argue that maybe Elhain might be good to keep for the High Elf one just for the fact you've got Elenarl with my code. But honestly, I would not pick your starter champion based on faction wars. I would pick your starter account based on who's going to be the best for the long term. And just, you know, do some of these things early on. It is definitely worth just a little bit of silver and time investment to make sure that you can do at least the first level of every single faction. And honestly, push as many of them as you can to get to stage 7 and beyond. Because once you get to stage 8, you start getting slightly better materials. And the fact that you can actually beat a campaign boss is going to give another issue that you're not going to get stuck not getting the advanced quest rewards if you get that quest and you're just not there yet. One of the places that I suggest actually investing time in early on, once you get to level, I believe it is 42, Iron Twins will unlock. And it might seem like it's a big stretch to do really, really well in Iron Twins. But even if you're farming stage 3 or possibly stage 6, which is not too hard to get to early on, farming Iron Twins is going to give you rewards that are going to continue to help you grow your account. Because blessings are huge, particularly on rare champions that you might even think that, you know, oh, rare champions don't. No, rare champions need the extra stats more than other champions do, and that extra stats that you get from those blessings can transform your account because you're getting an extra 5,000 HP, which doesn't sound like much for an endgame account, but 5,000 extra HP is sometimes the difference between somebody living through an attack and dying instantly at a very, very early account. And in many cases, since a lot of the healing is based off of their max HP for some early champions, you know, there's other things like defense increase that can certainly help reduce damage. And honestly, depending on the champion, having that extra HP means you can certainly build them for more damage because you're not giving up on the survivability quite as much as well. So don't slack off on the Iron Twins. You don't necessarily need to push it super hard, but being able to pull souls early and get a bunch of souls that might actually help your account can be great for pushing all kinds of content. It's going to help you. Honestly, souls are one of the biggest things that are going to help you against the clan boss. They're going to help you in all the dungeons. They're eventually going to help you in Hydra. They're going to help you in Chimera. They're going to help you all over the place. Are you looking for one of the best ways to start a brand new raid account, either just a second one to play, you know, different challenge or something like that, or are you just looking for a brand new one to share raid with your friends or family or anyone else? Or maybe you just thought raid was actually an amazing game and want to give it a try. Well, use my link down below. Get yourself a free legendary Elenarl, an amazing poisoner and burner, brings a ton of damage, brings a ton of utility, will help your account a ton. And once you get out of the tutorial, you'll get her. At level 15 of the account, you will get yourself a Fane, who is an amazing clan boss damage dealer and brings a ton of other debuffs as well as an epic. And finally, at level 30, get yourself a Mausoleum Mage, an amazing supporter who has heals and cleanses and buffs and will bring all kinds of extra cool things to your team. All you need to do is use the link down below. If you're downloading this on an Android or iOS device, just make sure it's a device that has never played Raid before. Download the link and you should be good to go. Just make a new account and you are all set. If you're doing this on PC, all you need to do is you can either uninstall or log out of every account on your Polarium Play, then create a new account online with the link using a brand new email, download and run the installation. It will put your account on your system automatically, and boom, there you go. Finish the tutorial, there's your Elenarl, have fun playing Raid Shadow Legends. It's an awesome way to start. It helps support me, it helps support the community, and it's a great way to get into a great game. Now, one of the more important places I've talked about is Minotaur's Labyrinth, And I'm going to tell you something that's a little different from what I normally say. Don't worry too much about the Minotaur's Labyrinth early on. You want to have your first 2 champions are probably going to be champions you're just going to buy the masteries for using gems. You want to get the gem mine unlocked, but I recommend buying your first champion's masteries with gems, so you have somebody with War Master and somebody with the full level 60 masteries. And given they're the person you're going to master level 6 first, they're going to be the one that's going to be most important on your account. Buy their masteries, buy another champion's masteries, and honestly, I recommend possibly either a support and a damage dealer, so your damage dealer should be your number 1 and then a support number 2, or 2 damage dealers as number 1 and number 2, because damage dealers being naturally kind of squishy, well, if they're 6 stars versus 5 stars, they're suddenly significantly tankier than they were at 5 stars, and their damage multiplies significantly going from a 5 star to a 6 star, both because you can possibly put banners on them, although you're not going to have a lot of banners early on, but also just because the base stats get about a 33% jump all over the place. So having your Kale maxed out, having your Tholen maxed out, having your Alice maxed out, having damage dealers maxed out, having your Monkey King maxed out, even though he does heal himself if you've been able to ascend him. The fact that he is going to help you and do so much more damage as a 6 star, part of the reason I think those first 2 are good. And buying the masteries on those 2 means that you will then be able to use those 2 to farm masteries in Minotaur's Labyrinth. But don't go too crazy on the Minotaur's Labyrinth. It's a good place to get some farming done, and honestly, it's not bad to get some of those early ones as well. But until you kind of have your clan boss team sorted out, you're not too worried about them. And what you really want to make sure you're doing is the champions that you're going to put masteries on are the champions that you're hoping to use onto this account for some significant portion of time. So that is going to be, well, and again, a Tholen should be a good champion for a long time to come. Kale, as much as Kale will definitely fall off, Kale with masteries is going to be very helpful in your account for quite a while. And honestly, he still has uses in the end game because he's still a great rare for some of the rare secret rooms. You're going to want to do it for some of your support champions. It's very helpful. And honestly, War Master helps give damage to your support champions, which can help you a lot more than you might expect otherwise. So champions like that. Your Mausoleum Mage, probably not a bad one to deal with. Your Fane, well, she's probably going to be a clan boss damage dealer for a while. She's definitely going to want all of those masteries. Ugos, your decreased defense champions. Support champions, good champions that you can see using for a while are going to be the ones you're going to want to get to focus on first on the Minotaur's Lair. Once you kind of get your account settled and you're doing Dungeon 20 and all of these things, or maybe beyond, then maybe you start working on more niche champions in the Minotaur. But early on, Minotaur is useful, but Minotaur is probably not the clutch importance for pushing your account. You're honestly better off making another 6 star than you are getting masteries on a champion you're not 100% sure about, just because getting those 5 stars and 6 stars to round out the account, flesh it out, and give yourself the champions you need to tackle multiple different pieces of content is going to be key. As far as which dungeon should you actually focus on, if I'm not talking about Minotaurs, because again, Minotaur does have limited use. It's great. And to be fair, once the company is done with Minotaur, they never need to run it again. So it is one of these, you suck it up and you accept that you're not going to get a lot done outside of Minotaur for a couple days. Once it's done, you've got a bunch of masteries on a bunch of champions. Hopefully that'll help. Dragon is not bad because you can farm Dragon easy, so you can get better gear out of Dragon very early on. That said, the only set that is really absolutely amazing in Dragon outside of speed is Lifesteal is not bad, accuracy is kind of useful, and Destroy and Toxic have very limited niche uses, but those are the type of things that you might find useful early on. Destroy specifically, it is nice to have somebody in Destroy for the Scarab boss, but that might be the only time you ever build somebody in Destroy, depending on who you manage to get to work on the Scarab boss. Toxic gives you a chance to get poisons, could be helpful in certain situations, particularly can be helpful against the clan boss if you're struggling for some damage, but eventually you're going to find the Toxic set's not really going to help you that much, because 75% chance to place a single low-end poison is really not that great compared to all the other cool sets you could be using. Lifesteal can be great, but it can fall off early in value because you can find other ways to heal your champions, and once you do, you're going to want them in better sets. Speed never falls off. Speed gear is amazing. Yes, there are technically sets that are better than speed in the game right now, but for the most part, speed is one of the easiest things to farm, and because it is easy to farm, it means you can power it up really easily, so you can get lots of speed on sets. Accuracy is okay really early on, but you're going to find that accuracy is going to fall behind perception gear, as well as things like pinpoint and feral gear as you can start to get those. What I actually found was very helpful for me is I did not spend a lot of time in spiders. I did not spend a lot of time in Ice Golem. Fire Knight is definitely one of the better dungeons to farm if you can, but I realize that Fire Knight is one of the more difficult dungeons to farm early on. And if their event dungeon happens to be open, if you can get to at least floor 10 in the event dungeon is worth running fairly often because you're going to get accessories about as good as you might be able to get in Spider, depending on certainly the current event dungeon and as well as what level you're able to run in Spider. But you're getting pinpoint accessories, which give you extra speed and extra accuracy, which is going to turbocharge your account early on. So as far as the dungeons are concerned, the event dungeon is great. The Fire Knight, solid. Dragon, just because you can farm higher levels of it easy, can make it very, very fun to play and very good for building yourself a collection of 6-star gear that is usable. Ice Golem is, honestly, Ice Golem gets stronger in later game and then falls off again at some point in time. And Spider is good to farm early on, don't get me wrong, but when the event dungeon is capable to be farmed, unless you're able to farm Spider 20 and still only stuck on event dungeon 10, I honestly think the chance of getting pinpoint gear, even if it's 4-star and you have to sell it, is better on slightly lower levels of the event dungeon. That is how good pinpoint gear is. Places where you can get free rewards are certainly worth farming as well. So, working on Doom Tower, get yourself as high up as you can in Doom Tower. You're probably going to be running normal early on. That's fine. Get yourself to floor 10 and try to farm the boss. Get yourself to floor 20, try to farm one of those 2 bosses. Depending on the rotation, it might be really, really hard if it's Bommel, for example, although Bommel normal 10 is not that hard at the moment. But you get free rewards just for climbing up these floors. So, as you can see here, obviously this is hard, but this is free stuff. When you're going early on, free stuff is free stuff. So don't turn your back on it. Good chance to get a bunch of extra things. There's extra energy up here. There's some chickens up here. There's glyphs here. There's brews, there's, charms, all kinds of cool stuff here. Stuff that will be useful for your account early on. So don't ignore this stuff entirely. Even Curse City, I was actually surprised how much of Curse City I can do. In fact, if we look at this right here, I have 74 stages done on Curse City on normal. Now I'm pretty much tapped out on this rotation. I don't think I can beat Amius. I can certainly make some last hurrah changes over here. And, but I actually managed to do a couple of stages on hard. In fact, I've been regularly able to do about 10 to 15 stages on hard with my free to play even early on. So being able to do a couple of stages in Curse City, again, free resources. You don't have to do it every day, but it's certainly worth poking in there occasionally and saying, hey, can I get a few more free resources on your early account? But I cannot stress enough, 6-starring champions helps make the account grow. Now, this was one of the things that we were talking, and I saw some other content creators talk about. Maybe people that 6-starred more champions don't necessarily know how to use the champions effectively or leverage them. I disagree with that. I think that 6-star champions are a huge, huge upgrade for a lot of accounts. Sometimes they're not worth it. And to be fair, I'm not telling you to 6-star champion that is not worth it. But if I take a look at my 6-star champions here, Alice, I use her a ton. Ludex Artor, use a ton. Fabian, huge carry for me. Quintus has been fun in Arena, and I'm using him in some other areas slowly but surely as well. I've finally got him built out, and I'm just starting to use him. Arbiter, been absolutely amazing. Cleopteryx was actually very helpful, and I still use her in some PvE stuff and some PvP stuff as well. Taragi, been great for my clan boss team. Heck, Templar, I made an entire video on how much Templar helped my free-to-play account. Templar was a huge build. Vergis, the one who's probably the least utilitarian on this entire account. Vergis has proven again to be very useful in a couple of good situations where I've needed his particular set of skills. So I have picked champions that will either have current and good uses or possibly really good uses later in the game. Cordian the Blue, he's been very helpful now. He's a core of my Spider team, but eventually he will also probably move into my hard Fire Knight team because he's a hard Fire Knight beast. And sometimes I'm just building champions because it makes sense to. I did build a second Cold Heart. I honestly don't use the second Cold Heart too often anymore, but at the time I wasn't even at Spider 20, and having 2 Cold Hearts let me get to Spider 20, which was a major milestone. There's a couple of other situations where she's still very useful to have 2 Cold Hearts, particularly in Faction Wars. I'm finding having 2 Cold Hearts has been pretty good. So focusing on building extra 6 stars can help improve the account. I'm 160 days in, and we're talking here 5, 10, 15, 20. We're talking approximately 30 6 stars on this account. So I've done almost 2 a week. You know, I'm probably not quite counting that right. So, you know, let me know in the comments how wrong I am on my math. But somewhere between 25 and 36 stars has helped me make this account what it is and turbocharge an early free-to-play account. Now, are you a spender? Well, that's great. You can probably do better than I am. You'll probably be able to book some of these champions. You probably will have more champions that you don't necessarily know what to do with. Certainly make sure you are very careful about which champions you pick, particularly because there are some really good champions in the late game that are honestly not particularly great early on. A big one for me, for example, is Seer. If I had had a Seer during the free-to-play challenge, I pulled her very early, I probably wouldn't have built her until very late. I would have eventually built her because her kit does provide some interesting and usable things to build her for. But honestly, getting a Seer to be functional in the role that Seer tends to be role for, which is wave clear and just an absolute nuke with that max HP hit, well, it's very hard to do on an early game account. So, you know, Kymar is a champion that very, very good, would still be worth building even to 6 star on an early game account, but he is not going to be as transformative on an early game account where you might struggle to build some of the speed teams versus a Rector Drath, who, for example, will hold carry and hard carry a team through some content right now, or your Tagors, who again will hard carry through some team account right now, or your Ugos. So don't fall in love with the legendaries. Don't be afraid to build some epics, but build champions, identify champions that will help your account, and push them to 5 stars and push them to 6 star. Because without having 5 stars and 6 stars, your account is going to linger and languish, and it's just not going to go anywhere, because going from a 5 star to a 6 star is such a huge advantage. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on ways you can try to turbocharge the progress on your account. Some of the stuff I mentioned you should certainly focus on. I did not mention a few things. You'll notice I didn't mention Hydra, I didn't mention Chimera. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do those things, but those are not areas of the game where I would really and truly focus on until you kind of have a handle on most of the dungeons. You kind of have a handle on who your core 5 to 10 champions are going to be, because you're going to want to build more than 5, 6 stars early on. You're going to want to get a good core of 10 to 15 of them, partially for things like 3v3, not that you're going to do a lot of 3v3 pushing early on, but honestly, once you start to get your core team of 5 and 6, you start building slightly more niche champions to do stuff in content that you can't do with other places. There's champions you're going to use in Fire Knight that are not necessarily going to be great for Dragon. There's champions you're going to use for Dragon that are not necessarily going to be great for Ice Golem. There's champions you're going to use in Ice Golem that are not going to be great for Spider. It's the way you build your accounts, and looking for champions that can fill multiple roles is great, but don't be afraid to build a specialist, especially if you know that specialist is great at their job and is one of the best, especially if it's one of the best at their jobs. You realize they're probably not going to get power crept out of your account for a long time, and even if they do, Faction Wars is still a thing, and sometimes those utilitarian champions that you build for just your Spider might still prove to be very useful for Faction Wars. So, hey, hopefully you guys like this. Again, I appreciate it. Shout out to Sacha Dami. I'm probably butchering that, but thank you for the idea for this. I think this is a great idea for video, because it's certainly, there's plenty of videos that kind of cover the first getting your Cheers champion to 6 star, kind of pushing yourself to the dungeons. But I really think that kind of knowing where to prioritize and slot your current priorities is going to really help turbocharge a lot of accounts. If you want to, you can check out the free to pause playlist. You can certainly see me in the Hell Hades free to play, where I basically took an account from brand new while competing with several other people and pushed it to where, well, you see it right now. And 160 days in, I was number 2 as far as total points in the Hell Hades. And I did things that are probably not necessarily perfect to align with what you might want to do as an early game player, but a lot of the strategies I employed should be pretty universal. So, hey, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below if you liked the video, any tips you think I may have overlooked, or maybe if you got any more ideas. I definitely appreciate you guys. I want to make sure that I'm making content that you both enjoy and are finding interesting and entertaining. So let me know down below if there's something I can do to scratch that itch for you. And hey, until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.